Sometimes a story starts, just as a little ripple online.
Yeah.
A digital spark.
Yeah.
And then boom, it just ignites. Spreads in ways you'd never, ever expect.
Absolutely. And today's story is exactly like that, but with a really dark twist.
Right. We're doing a deep dive into the Slender Man phenomenon. We've got the Wikipedia page is the main one, and the one on the stabbing, plus an outline for a video called Slender Man, From Myth to Murder.
Good sources.
Yeah, think of this as like your shortcut to understanding how this thing went from an internet creation to, well, something much more disturbing.
It's gripping, isn't it? Seeing how something born entirely online could get its hook so deep into people, so deep it leads to real-world horror. So our mission here is to really unpack that. Where did Slender Man even come from? How did the myth get so big? What actually happened in Waukesha?
And what does it all mean, right, about online stories and their power?
Exactly. The sources have some surprising stuff in them. Let's get into it.
Okay, so Creepypasta, that's the starting point. For anyone who doesn't know, it's basically internet horror stories. Short, spooky fiction that just spreads online. Digital folklore, almost.
Pretty much. And Slender Man pops up right in that world. June 10th, 2009.
On the Something Awful forums.
That's the place. Known for being edgy. They had a Photoshop contest, make something paranormal, something creepy.
And that's where Eric Knudsen, using the name Victor Surge, posts his stuff.
Yep. And it wasn't just one picture. He did two. Black and white photos of kids.
And the creepy part was how subtle it was, right? Just this super tall, thin, shadowy figure in a suit kind of lurking in the background.
Exactly. Simple, but really effective. And then he added text. That was key.
Ah, the captions. Made them feel like old documents or something.
Right. One supposedly from '83, talking about this silence and outstretched arms. Creepy, but also weirdly comforting.
Strange.
And the other one, '86, photographer missing, mentions the Slender Man by name. Connects him to missing kids, a library fire. It started building this fake history.
It's fascinating what inspired him. It wasn't just random. He mentioned Zach Parsons' That Insidious Beast, Stephen King's The Mist.
Shadow People reports, Mothman, the Mad Gasser of Mattoon. Real regional legends.
And movies, too, like The Tall Man from Phantasm, H.P. Lovecraft's Cosmic Dread, even Burroughs.
And video games, Silent Hill, Resident Evil. He pulled from all these different kinds of fear.
That makes sense. He was trying to create something you couldn't really understand, right? Something that just made you feel uneasy.
Exactly. Not jump scares, but that deep, lingering dread. That was his goal, according to the sources.
And it's interesting. You think about similar figures that came before, like the gentleman from Buffy.
Oh, yeah. Pale faces, dark suits. Very similar vibe.
Or Men in Black legends. Even the Question from DC Comics, his name is Victor Sage, close to Knudsen's alias Victor Surge.
Interesting connection. It's like these unsettling archetypes were already there, floating around, maybe made people more open to Slender Man.
And Professor Shira Chess connects it way back to old folklore about fairies.
Right. Which sounds weird at first, but think about it. Otherworldly beings, unclear motives, vague looks, live in the woods.
Kidnapping children.
Exactly. Those themes are ancient. So maybe Slender Man taps into those really old primal fears we all kind of share.
So that first post wasn't just a one-off. It went viral. Like, properly viral.
Oh, massively. Almost overnight, you had fan art, people dressing up as him cosplay, and tons more stories. The creepypasta thing just exploded around it.
The internet just grabbed it and ran.
Totally. The myth started growing way beyond what Knudsen first made. So many people added their own bits, their own ideas. It became this huge collaborative thing.
Like a digital campfire story.
That's a great way to put it. It shows the power of that collective creation online.
And someone early on, Thorough Up, linked him to Der Grossman, some 16th century German thing.
Yeah, trying to give him older roots, make him seem more like a real legend. People were digging for connections.
Then came Marble Hornets. That feels like a huge turning point.
Absolutely pivotal. Started on Something Awful again, user cigars, but became this YouTube series, found footage style.
Right, about a film student finding something disturbing. The Operator, which was Slender Man.
Yep. And it had that alternate reality game thing going on, too. A Twitter feed, another weird YouTube channel called To Hark.
Made it feel really immersive, blurred the lines.
Hugely. By 2013, it had like hundreds of thousands of subscribers, millions of views. It really showed how interactive storytelling could boost a myth like this.
And that opened the door for others. Right. Everyman H. Wybrid Trap 12.
Yeah, more series, more people getting involved. Marble Hornets also gave us that symbol, the crossed circle.
The Slender Man symbol and the idea of proxies.
Right, the humans who work for him under his control. Big additions to the lore.
And the look really got cemented then, too. Tall, thin, blank white face, black suit.
Always in the woods or abandoned places. And he could teleport, that creepy teleporting.
Plus the slender sickness. Just being near him makes you paranoid, gives you nightmares, nosebleeds.
Yeah, this whole cluster of symptoms. But what's interesting is a lot of the actual violence in the stories is subtle, off-screen.
More suggested than shown.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which can be way scarier, right? Lets your own imagination do the work, makes it more personal.
But then the video games hit. Slender.
Mm.
The 8 pages. That was huge in 2012.
So huge it crashed the download site. Everyone wanted to play it.
Spawned loads of copies, too. Slender Man Shadow, mobile versions.
And the official sequel, Slender, The Arrival in 2013. Plus, indie films started popping up. Entity, the Slender Man funded on Kickstarter.
Wow. Kickstarter shows it had real momentum.
Yeah, even a Marble Hornets movie was announced. It was becoming mainstream. But then things took that really awful turn in Waukesha.
Yeah. May 31st, 2014. Waukesha, Wisconsin. This is where it gets incredibly dark. The fiction spills over.
Horrifically real. 2 12-year-old girls, they lure their friend, also 12, into the woods.
And stab her 19 times.
Yeah.
It's just hard to even process that number.
And their reason, the motive they gave police, it was chilling. They said they did it for Slender Man.
To become his proxies. To prove he was real.
Yes. And they apparently believe if they didn't do it, he'd help their families. It's just a catastrophic blurring of lines, especially for kids that age.
It's unbelievable the victim survived. She managed to crawl out to a road.
Yeah, a cyclist found her. Her resilience is just incredible, truly.
Meanwhile, the 2 girls who did it were caught. Charged as adults, even though they were only 12.
And both were diagnosed with mental illnesses, which adds another layer of tragedy. One of them said Slender Man watched her, read her mind, could teleport.
And didn't the expert testimony mention she also talked to Voldemort? And a Ninja Turtle.
Yeah. Indicating a really profound break from reality. It wasn't just about Slender Man for her, it seems.
So complex. The trials, they were found competent, tried as adults.
Separately, one pleaded guilty to attempted second-degree homicide, but not guilty by reason of insanity. Got 25 years in hospital.
And the other?
Agreed to plead guilty to attempted first-degree homicide. Sentenced to 40 years in a mental hospital. It's just devastating. A stark warning about online stuff mixing with mental health issues.
And the creator, Eric Knudsen, he put out a statement, right?
Yeah, expressing deep sadness, sympathy for everyone, which, highlights that gap between what he intended a spooky story and how it was tragically twisted.
And the victim, Peyton Leutner. She spoke out later. So brave.
Incredibly brave, talking about these scars, physical and mental, and astonishingly saying she'd almost thank one attacker because it inspired her to go into medicine.
Wow, that level of strength. It's hard to fathom.
After Waukesha, you can imagine, there was this huge moral panic nationwide.
Parents freaking out about what their kids were seeing online.
Totally. The Waukesha police chief warned about the dark and wicked things on the internet. And other incidents started getting linked, maybe tenuously, but linked.
Like the girl in Ohio attacking her mom, and one in Florida setting a fire.
Yeah, both supposedly mentioning Slender Man. And even on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation, reports linked him to suicide attempts, connecting him to their own suicide spirit legends.
So disturbing how it echoed.
Then the documentary came out, Beware the Slender Man, in 2016. Really dug into the case and the panic.
And the stabbing definitely changed things for the online Slender Man community, didn't it?
Oh, for sure. His popularity dropped, some blogs and fan sites shut down, the fun creepiness was gone, replaced by real horror.
But then, weirdly, didn't he start getting portrayed as good? Later on.
Yeah, late 2010s, you saw these portrayals of him as, an anti-hero, protecting kids. Characters like Skinny Sally, his supposed daughter he protected.
Maybe the community trying to reclaim him, reacting against the darkness.
Could be. But the commercial stuff kept coming, and it was controversial. The Marble Hornets movie, Always Watching, in 2015, and the big Slender Man movie in 2018.
That movie got slammed, didn't it? People saying it exploited the tragedy.
Hugely. Bill Weir, Anissa's dad, called it absurd, said it just hurt the families more.
And critically, it bombed, even though it made its budget back somehow.
Yeah, reviews were terrible, tasteless, boring. One critic called it a nail in the coffin of a dying fandom, like the real tragedy killed the fictional appeal.
So even though we know who created him, scholars argue he became like digital folklore.
Exactly. Professor Shira Chess points to the collectivity, lots of people shaping him, the variability, how the story kept changing, and the performance people acting it out, creating art, playing games.
Like traditional folklore, but online.
Yeah, she sees the internet as this new open source space for myth-making.
And Andrew Peck says his vagueness was key. It let people feel ownership, add their own ideas, build a community around it.
Right. That collaborative aspect was huge, like that digital campfire story idea again.
Plus, people wanted to believe a bit. Suspend disbelief.
Yeah, even knowing he wasn't real, people got immersed. That blurring of lines is classic folklore stuff. It got so blurry, people were calling radio shows like Coast to Coast AM asking about him.
Wow. So what does he represent? Shira Chess says he's a metaphor for helplessness, anonymous forces.
Yeah, anxieties of the modern age. Peck links it to being constantly online, feeling watched. Digital age fears.
Makes sense. Ty Van Horn thinks he's about fear of the unknown in an age where we think we know everything.
And Troy Wagner, who made Marble Hornets, says the terror is his malleability. You project your own fears onto him.
Jeff Tolbert had that interesting idea, reverse ostension.
Right. Instead of a story growing from a belief, Slender Man created the folklore-like beliefs and stories around himself.
A new myth generating its own folklore.
Exactly. And Professor Thomas Pettit sees it as part of this bigger shift, the Gutenberg parenthesis closing, a return to older, more fluid, retold stories after centuries of fixed print.
But he's not public domain, right? Knudsen kept the copyright.
Yeah, Knudsen enforced it, partly for artistic reasons, wanted adaptations to be actually scary. He sold the media rights, though it got a bit complicated later.
Still, he popped up everywhere, like the Enderman in Minecraft. That's totally Slender Man inspired.
Definitely. And Lost Girl had an episode linking him to the Pied Piper. Supernatural did a parody, Thin Man.
Law and Order. SVU did an episode based on Waukesha, Glasgowman's Wrath. Even Big Mouth had him.
Shows how deep he got into pop culture, despite everything.
So, let's quickly touch on the recent updates for the people involved in Waukesha. Anissa Weir.
She was released conditionally in September 2021. GPS monitoring at first, internet restrictions, therapy, living with her dad. The GPS came off in late 2023. No contact with Peyton Leutner until 2039.
And Morgan Geyser. Her path was more complex.
Yeah, her requests for juvenile retrial or early release were denied initially. But then, January 2025, a court-approved conditional release. Experts said she'd made significant progress in treatment.
There were also reports about her identifying as transgender.
Yes, reports mentioned she identified as male and was transitioning, though court documents often still used female pronouns. Her release plan hit a snag in Feb 2025 with some new allegations.
About communication and reading material.
Right. Her lawyer denied them, doctors still supported release. It got postponed, but then in March 2025, her conditional release was allowed.
Under strict conditions, though. Group home supervision until 2058.
Long-term monitoring, yeah. Reevaluations, too.
And Peyton Leutner. It's important to remember her ongoing experience. Still dealing with trauma.
Reports say so. Even sleeping with broken scissors at one point. But her strength and resilience through it all, just remarkable.
So, wrapping this up, it's quite a journey. From an internet forum post to this.
A truly tragic journey. Shows the power of online stories, how those lines between digital and real can blur with devastating results.
Yeah, the implications are huge. How internet culture affects people, especially young people. The potential for fiction to have real, awful consequences.
Definitely.
It leaves you thinking, doesn't it? What's our collective responsibility here in how we create and consume these online narratives? How do we build better media literacy, critical thinking to maybe prevent something like this, rooted in shared fiction, from happening again, especially online where things spread so fast?
Yeah, that's the big question to reflect on, isn't it?